So apparently I do vlogs now. No, this isn't really going to be a regular thing. The Beanie Baby one was kind of a special case, and this is also a special case, and it's not going to be nearly as long. I will be annoyed if this goes over like 20 minutes, because there's not going to be any interesting visuals for it. But anyway, I wanted to do a thing about Fablehaven, and apparently bump the camera while doing so, because that's cool. But this is a book series I've talked about a few times in my videos and streams and stuff. I've not gone into super big detail on it, but it is something that I enjoy, and I wanted to talk about it a bit, mainly because on March 14th, there's a new book coming out called Dragonwatch, which is a follow-up to this series. Same author, going to be the same characters, picks up where the last book picks off, or left off and everything. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll be cool. And I figured this would be a good time to kind of go over this series, explain what it is, why I like it, and if it sounds interesting to you, then maybe you can pick it up as well. So, before I start getting into like what it's about and everything, I will make it clear that this is a young adult series. It's kind of like on par or slightly below the Harry Potter level of like maturity. So it's, if you're the kind of person who doesn't want to read something that's meant for kids, then it's probably not going to be for you. But I find it an enjoyable series. It doesn't really talk down to its audience, at least not very much. Every once in a while it kind of does that, but it's not a big deal. And I find it basically an interesting premise. So there's going to be comparisons to Harry Potter quite a bit, because it is I'd say it's kind of riding its coattails a little bit, but it's not exactly the same. It's, when you think Harry Potter, you think it's fantasy in modern times, and that is what Fablehaven also is. But Harry Potter is about basically magic and like wizardry and all this stuff, and basically all the things that come from that. In this series, magic does exist, and it plays a role in the stories, but it's not something that the main characters can really use. Not to the same degree, at least. It's more about the strange creatures that inhabit the world. I like to think of it as sort of like if Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was a book series, it would probably be somewhat like this. So I guess I'll just kind of get started here by going over the general premise. I'm going to talk about what happens in the first book, not giving away all of it, but like how it's kind of set up at least. And then I'll touch a little bit on the overarching story through all five. Obviously not going to be giving any major spoilers. But of the 5 books, we've got the original, which doesn't have a subtitle, it's just Fablehaven, Rise of the Evening Star, Grip of the Shadow Plague, Secrets of the Dragon Sanctuary, and Keys to the Demon Prison. They range from, I think this one's like 350 pages, let me see. Yeah, this is like 350. This I think is the longest one, it's about 600, so they're not super long books, but they're not super short either. They're kind of in the, again, mid-Harry Potter range, like Order of the Phoenix was like 700 something, so this isn't as long as that, but more also happens in this than just a bunch of brooding, but whatever. There's not going to be many visuals here. There's not really much I could show. Like, I could flip through it and try to find the artwork, because there are occasional pictures of stuff that happens. Let me see if I can find one. But let me go ahead and pretty much just talk about what happens, or like the setup. I can't find the picture or whatever. So let's just go ahead and focus on this one. The 2 main characters of this series are Kendra and Seth Sorensen. They're brother and sister. They start out 12 and 13 in the first book, and I think like a year and a half passes throughout the series. It's not like a year per book type thing. And in the first book, it is told completely from Kendra's perspective. In the later books, it kind of switches between them a bit. Depending on what's going on, they kind of split up at times, and you'll follow one and then follow the other. And I find them pretty good characters. Seth is the one who is kind of more... He has more personality, I guess you could say. The only the main problem with Kendra as a character is that she's kind of bland, and I don't know if it's because the author is bad at writing female characters or if it's just because she's meant to kind of be like the self-insert, like this is you, you're experiencing it through these eyes type thing. Because like she does have personality, she's a little bit sarcastic and is just kind of your typical like good student, like there's really not much to write home about with her. It kind of gets more interesting later on when certain events take place and she gets like other abilities and stuff. But in terms of like just, I don't know, I don't know where I'm going with this. Seth, on the other hand, is pretty much just kind of a dumbass. Like, I don't know what else to call him. He's not like Patrick from SpongeBob levels of stupid. I'm not saying that, but basically he's just disobedient, I guess is the best way to put it. And he does get better as the series goes on. He actually matures quite a bit, which I enjoy. But in the first book, he is very ADD. I'm going to do what I want because I want to have fun. I don't care about the consequences kind of kid. And I kind of like that because he's like, I guess he's just kind of relatable and fun to laugh at. I don't know. But those are your main characters you're going to be spending most of the time with. And then there's a large cast of secondary characters that'll show up. And obviously I'm not going to get into all those because you don't care. But here's the premise of the series. It starts out, Kendra and Seth are visiting their grandfather for the summer because their parents are going on a cruise. He owns a large plot of land in Connecticut and has basically a big house out in the woods and has like a lot of property that he takes care of. But he also is not very open to, like, he's kind of estranged from the family a little bit, if that's the right way to put it. He doesn't really talk to the rest of them that often, and so the two main characters aren't really super familiar with him. And so they don't really want to go. They're thinking they're going to have a bad time. And when they get there, there's a bunch of strange things that kind of start happening. They notice that there's a lot of weird activity with the... there's like a lot of butterflies and other types of like just insects and small animals that don't seem to be behaving normally. And their grandma is mysteriously missing. Like the grandpa won't say if she's dead. Like they basically they think she's dead. He never says anything confirming or denying it. And there's weird stuff going on. And he sets up sort of a scavenger hunt. Also, lawnmower, ignore that. He sets up sort of a scavenger hunt for them. Says like there's 3 keys hidden in your bedroom, and if you can find them and find what they go to, then you'll find something cool. And Seth really doesn't want anything to do with that. He's just kind of off doing his own thing. Kendra looks for the keys. She eventually finds them and uncovers a journal that says, "Drink the milk." This is referring to these tins of milk that one of the helpers at the... I don't know what to call it. Like, the place is called Fablehaven. Like, that's what the series is called, but you don't know that that's what it's called yet. Basically, he's helping out on the grounds. He takes care of a lot of the stuff. He's laying out these tins of milk, and he's like, you can't drink these. They're full of bacteria. It's dangerous. So, after seeing the notebook, or after seeing the journal that says that, Kendra tricks Seth into drinking the milk, and it turns out that the butterflies and stuff on the grounds are actually fairies. And so that's where we kind of learn about the magical world in this setting. It's, the way it's basically presented is that throughout the world, supernatural creatures, I don't know if supernatural is the right word, but basically just creatures that we don't think exist in real life actually do exist, and people just don't really perceive them because they have lost the ability to believe. And certain things can kind of open your eyes to this hidden world, and the milk does that because it's produced by a giant magical cow on the grounds. It sounds kind of stupid, but just go with it. It makes sense. And so the plot of land that the grandpa owns is called Fablehaven, and it's basically sort of a preserve that houses a lot of different types of magical creatures. So like in the artwork of this one, this is Muriel the Witch. She doesn't count as a magical creature, she's just a witch. But we'll talk about her in a minute probably. You got your fairies. In the other books, here's a Hydra. This is obviously on the high end of like the danger scale. You don't have Hydras at Fablehaven, but obviously they show up later on. This is a demon. We'll get to that later also. This is a thing I'm not going to spoil. And this is a centaur. I believe his name is Cloudwing. Or possibly Broadhoof. I don't remember which one. There's a few of them. But there's a bunch of different creatures on the grounds. Let me leave some of the books on the image just so you have something to look at, I guess. You've got your fairies, of course. Then you have like satyrs. There's naiads, which are kind of like water nymphs. There's tree people. They're called dryads. There's, let's see. You've got your demons, your ogres, like the evil stuff, giants. There's like dwarves, brownies, which are these little tiny people that kind of fix stuff. There's a lot of different things. And so a decent amount of the first book is spent just kind of introducing you to this world and learning what all the different creatures are and what they do. And basically goes on to explain that the reason they have these preserves is because they're basically just trying to maintain like the natural order of these creatures instead of letting them die out in the wild, because in ancient times people used to know these things existed. They weren't confined to these preserves, they just kind of lived everywhere. And so the more dangerous creatures, the demons, the dragons, etc., obviously posed a major risk, and they kind of had to be contained for everybody else's sake. And the major, I'm trying to think how to explain this, but the yeah, I don't know. As far as demons go, basically back in ancient times, wizards were a thing. They kind of stopped existing as time went on. Like magic is known about, but nobody really has the powers of the ancient magic that used to be known. Wizards formed a prison called Zizix, which is basically used to lock away all of the most dangerous demons in the world. And it is basically the kind of thing where if this thing ever got opened, it would be the end of the world as we knew it. The demons would just kind of destroy everything and take over, and like humanity might survive, but it would be a lot worse off if it did. So that kind of ties into the later books, and I'll explain that in a second. But there's basically your foundation. Magic exists, but common people don't have access to it. And there is also a lot of fairly Odd Parents-esque, like, duh rules type stuff going on. Like, for example, in the preserves, different creatures basically have different amounts of land that they're allowed to live in, and they can't really cross the borders into the other sections. And the reason for that is because of a treaty that was basically set by the caretaker, in this case their grandpa, and it kind of sets these rules, and any non-mortal creatures, I don't know if immortal is the right word, but any of the magical creatures basically are bound to these. Like, they don't really have a choice in the matter, they have to stick with them. And one of the things they stress is that magic is, like, often the most simple thing can cause the strongest magic. So like, they have this registry that says the certain number of things that are allowed inside the borders of the preserve, and what areas they can roam, and as long as that is in the book, it cannot be broken. And one of the other agreements that comes along with this is 4 times a year, on the summer solstice, the winter solstice, and the 2 equinoxes, basically these rules are broken, and every creature can roam the entire preserve. And so obviously this is a very dangerous time. And when Kendra and Seth are visiting, it's the time of the summer solstice, which is basically the most dangerous of them all. And again, it like, due to the way that these laws work, the safest way for them to get through this is basically to stay in their room, and like, they can't leave, they can't open the window, they have to just stay in bed and kind of deal with it throughout the night, and as long as they're good, no harm will come to them. But if they do anything, if they break any of these rules, then the creatures would be able to enter the house, and it would not be good. So, remember when I said that Seth is kind of a dumbass and a rule breaker? Seth opens a window, and a bunch of shit comes in, and I'd really like to find the picture of it, so I'm gonna look for that for a minute. But I found a picture. This isn't the one, but there, it's a chapel of some kind. Basically, a bunch of monsters come inside the house. They cause some shit to happen. Nobody dies, but basically, their grandpa and the other helpers, there's Dale, there's Lena, or Lena, I don't know how you say her name, they're gone. And, okay, here we go. It was like giant flying centipede thing, some kind of zombie goblin deal. I don't remember what it is, but whatever. They come in, shit gets real, everybody's gone. So that's kind of the halfway point of the story, and then the rest of it is kind of figuring out where they went and how to get them back. And the reason that there's a witch on the cover is she plays a decent role in this. Basically, she's bound by this rope that has a bunch of knots in it, and every time you unravel a knot by blowing on it, she gains the ability to use a spell. And if you ever get rid of all the knots, then she's basically free and can use her magic wherever she wants to, and you don't want that because she's probably evil. And so, I'm not going to say any more on that subject because, like I said, she kind of plays a major role in the story. But that's kind of where this book goes. It's a self-contained, like, fun romp with magical creatures. It has a pretty good ending, and then that's about it. But, as we can obviously tell, the story keeps going, and that's where the demon prison Zizix comes into play. As I mentioned before, this thing is a demon. Its name is Alec the Glutton, and it's just kind of this thing that awakens if you feed it, and then it, like, whoever feeds it will be constantly chased by it until it eats the person who fed it. It's like, not all demons work that way. There's some that are just big scary monsters in a cave type stuff, but that's a particular one that comes into play. And the reason the story kind of keeps going is because there is an evil society called the Society of the Evening Star, hence the title there, and their goal is basically to open the demon prison because they believe that no prison can stand forever, and instead of letting it eventually open under the wrong circumstances, they want the right person who can control these demons and contain them and basically make them follow, like, their orders or whatever. They want that person to open it to prevent a catastrophe. And so the good guys, like Grandpa Sorensen and the two main characters and their various allies, are the Dawn of the... Oh god, what the hell are they called? Why can I not remember? The Knights of the Dawn, that's what it is. So they kind of stand against that. They're saying, like, the Society of the Evening Star is full of shit. They can't do that. They're going to cause the end of the world. So this is where it comes into how this prison works. So basically, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different preserves throughout the world that all house the different types of creatures in them. And there's a lot of different kinds, and they're on like all continents and stuff. But of those, there are also 5 secret ones that are not really supposed to be known about to the rest of the community, and Fablehaven is one of those 5. And each of the secret preserves has a chamber of some sort on it, basically kind of like a Zelda dungeon, almost. And you need a specific key to get into it, and once you get through it, there's a lot of different traps and trials and stuff, and when you get to the end of it, you will find a ancient artifact with a really powerful ability. There's one that is basically a teleporter, there's one that lets you go through time, there's one that heals every disease, that kind of stuff. And so, every one of the 5 preserves has one of these, and if you have all 5 of them, they basically act as the keys to the demon prison. And so, in the second book, basically they've kind of hired on some extra help. You learn 3 new characters. There's Vanessa, who basically collects and studies rare animals, or whirligigs, she calls them, like magical animals. There's Coulter, who studies artifacts. He has some stuff like an invisibility glove and this pod that protects you from everything, that kind of thing. And then there's Tanu, the potion master, who pretty much, like I said, he knows potions really well. He knows how to make them. He knows where to get the rare ingredients and stuff. And they're basically helping to find the chamber in Fablehaven so that they can recover the artifact and basically better protect it from anybody who's trying to get at it, because they have reason to believe that there's a lot of activity going on and that they're in danger. And so, without spoiling too much else about the story, that's the overarching plot of what's going on here. You've got the 2 sides kind of at war. You've got the artifacts that they're going after. Really briefly, I guess I'll talk about the other ones. This one, basically there's this, like as the title indicates, there's this plague that's basically turning creatures dark. Like one of the things you learn in the first book is fairies have a fallen state called imps. Basically, if a fairy stays inside overnight, it turns into an imp, which is a similar creature, but it's dark instead of light. And there's a bit of a difference between dark versus light and good versus evil. Like, it's not quite that simple, but it's similar. And so the Shadow Plague is basically turning other creatures that normally don't have fallen states into dark versions. So you've got your Dark Centaur, your Dark Satyr, etc. And they have to figure out a way to get rid of the plague. In this one, this thing here is a key to one of the other artifact chambers, and it is hidden inside a dragon sanctuary, which is basically the most dangerous place you could ever go, because dragons are the most powerful creatures you can imagine, basically. Because not only are they just kind of large and imposing and dangerous, but they also emit paralyzing fear to anybody that basically encounters them. So it's like, even if you were going to try to fight one, all it has to do is look at you and you're pretty much dead. There are certain ways around this, and they find ways around it. But, yeah, overall, don't want to mess with the dragons. And then this one, again, I don't want to say too much about it. I don't even really want to say what this thing is. But this is where it all kind of comes together. They've got the last of the keys needed. The society is basically reaching their goal. And everything's kind of coming together to the climax. So that's basically the plot. If that sounds interesting to you at all, I definitely recommend it. I will point out a few downsides to the series, because I think if I'm going to talk about the stuff I like, I should also talk about the bad stuff, just so you know what to expect. I've mentioned a few times that the series kind of talks down to you a little bit, and that's very rare, but it does happen. And it's, let me show this. Like, at the end of every book, they have this reading guide. It's pretty much meant to be like, if you're reading this to your kids, like, these are the questions you ask, just to make sure that they kind of, like, understand the morals and stuff. Obviously, if you're older, you don't have to read those. I've never really looked at them. But the series is meant to be accessible by children. But, and when I said it kind of talks down a little bit, it's, I guess, just sort of in the explanations of things. Sometimes somebody will ask a question, like in the first book, Kendra asks, like, since all these creatures actually exist, does that mean that everything from mythology is real? And the explanation given is kind of like handholdy. I don't really know a way to put it. Every once in a while, I think that this is kind of like the one shortcoming of the series, as far as I'm concerned, is every once in a while it gets kind of exposition-y, and the characters cease to be characters and basically just become a mouthpiece for an explanation. I don't know how else to put that, and it's not a big enough issue to really be like something to turn you away, I think, but it is something to look out for, because every once in a while you'll come across a section that just all of a sudden somebody starts talking like a textbook. I don't know. Not too big of a deal, but it does exist. As I mentioned before, Seth is a complete dumbass in the first book, and you kind of like, you'll be reading it and you're like, geez, this freaking kid, like, what the hell is wrong with him? And like I said, he gets better. He still stays kind of a dork and a brat throughout the series, but he does mature quite a bit, and I enjoy that. What else would I say as a downside? Not really too much that I can think of. I guess you could say the lack of Kendra's real personality, because really she's just kind of the girl, is how I can put that. Like, that's her personality, is she is like the mature one who doesn't goof off. She's smart and in control, and she's the girl. Like, I don't know. But as I said, if you can get past that stuff, it's an interesting read. I'm definitely looking forward to the new one coming out, and that's supposed to also be a 5-part series, so I guess we'll see where that goes. There's also talk of a movie being made of the first book, but that was years ago, and nothing's ever happened with it, so it's probably not going to happen, but I can hope. And I think I've probably said enough. I didn't want this to go over 20 minutes, and it already has, but yeah, that's about all I can say. If it sounds like something that you'd be interested in, I definitely recommend checking out at least the first couple and then see if you want to stick with it. If it doesn't, then that's fine. I'm not a huge reader myself. I basically just, every once in a while, I'll find something that piques my interest, and I'll read through it, and I'll enjoy it, and I'll read through it again. I've read these books 3 times now. So, yeah, I guess I'll stop here, and Penguin. Oh, and a quick other thing I just remembered, Brendan Mull does have another series, 3-parter called Beyonders. I do have those books, I just didn't feel like fishing them out for the sake of this. This video is not supposed to be about Beyonders, so I'm not going to really go into what that story is about, but to keep it really simple, it's basically, it's another like fantasy in modern day type thing, but not quite in the same way. It's basically like a parallel universe. A kid basically ends up in this other world and has to get out. Like, I don't know how else to say it. There's obviously a lot more to it than that, but there's wizards, there's magic, there's one of the more interesting things from that is the concept of there's something called a displacer, I think is what they're called. I haven't read it in a while. Basically, they're people that can separate their body parts at will and then reassemble them. But yeah, it's I didn't like that series as much as Fablehaven, but it was still good. So if you do end up reading these and want to check out something else, I guess I recommend those also. But that's about all I want to say about them.